Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from Red State dated September 23rd. And it says, I was wrong. There is an extremism epidemic in the U.S. military. And that headline alone made me want to go read this thing because that's a problem. And it made me think of like when Obama was purging people, and same with Biden, that were conservative. So let's see if there's any other story to see here on this. It says, one of the hard realities of life is making mistakes, of believing things in youth, naivete, or perhaps even optimism that are eventually proven wrong by persevering through new experiences. One such instance forcefully confronted me in recent days, and that's the author, not me, Jason. Says, having served in the U.S. Army for 20 years, I found former Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's partisan assertion that there was an infestation of extremism loose in the U.S. military fictional but insulting. But I now have seen it with my own eyes. It's time for a mea culpa. I awoke on Thursday, September 11th, with the kind of sadness for our country that, compared to what I felt on September 12th, 2001, the morning after the Twin Towers fell in New York. Did it really happen? I asked myself as a college student, hoping it was all a terrible nightmare. Back in the present, I looked at my phone to see a message from a colleague. He shared a screen capture of Army Colonel Janelle Jeffrey's take on Charlie Kirk's assassination. Sometimes we reap what we sow. So, why did I say sow? I'm not talking about like an animal says that is all. Well, that's disturbing to see someone in the military saying that. They shouldn't have an opinion on it at all. And if they do, they need to keep it to themselves, not make it public. It says, then another came in, then another. It was clear to me that this had been no dream, but a very real lived-out nightmare. It still feels like a nightmare that he was killed, Mr. Kirk over here to the right. Like, I'm swear to God, every time I see his name on something, I just have to, like, sigh about it, and just, like, my stomach drops for a minute, because it's like, you know, like, again, is it real? Did it actually happen? But just the awakening that he's because of that, which unfortunately it took that to happen, has been nothing short of phenomenal. So if you want to say that something good came out of it, I guess that was it. But I'm going off on a tangent, but still, it's just, yeah, you're just like, why did this happen? It shouldn't have happened. And rest in peace, Charlie, of course. This is more questions came, a repetition of what I wondered as the dust settled over lower Manhattan 2 decades before, when we could no longer deny the contempt that radical Islam has for the West. We asked things like, why do they hate us so viciously? How many more will they try to kill? Will the nation rise to meet this murderous threat? Now I ask these questions about Americans on the left. We failed to defeat al-Qaeda over the course of 2 decades. Worse still, we allowed the American left wing to import that foreign terrorist association's agenda, tactics, and desired end state, violent destruction of those marked as infidels. Yeah, and it was that suicidal empathy is what did it. Let's just let them in because we don't want to be seen as Islamophobic, do we? Even though that their beliefs don't jive with ours. It says, then we gave these Al-Qaeda agents safe harbor in the ranks of our military. Perhaps it's time to reflect on the reality that a force that welcomed anti-American extremists in its ranks was ineffective at defeating extremists abroad. The military is a cross-section of society, drawing membership from all perspectives and walks of life. I served with left-leaning soldiers early in my career, but none openly hated the nation. That changed during the Obama administration. So another thing Obama messed up. Says most Americans assume the military leans right, as I would have for a long time, up until probably the last 10 or 15 years or so, and that held true across most of the post-World War II professionalized force. It was the military's professionalism that enabled it to stand as a bulwark against the left's march through the institutions longer than all others. Thus, the armed forces became a target in the same way that revolutionaries targeted militaries as critical centers of gravity in every totalitarian enabling murderous revolution of the 20th century. By 2020, the American military joined in on the bandwagon of our nation being in need of a redemption that could come only through Marxist self-loathing. Following that lead, there was a growing group of military members using the language of critical theorists and lambasting constitutional principles, words like homophobe, xenophobe, anti-immigrant, language of enemy ideologies that should be resoundingly rejected by the troops. They don't know what fascist means any more than they know what's in the U.S. Constitution. Reports are coming in of military leaders, and scare quotes there, up to general officer ranks sharing similar things verbally. For every revolutionary who outs himself or herself online, it's likely that many more work against constitutional principles out of the public's view. That's, again, another very scary thing to think about. It says Barack Obama, I can't say his name, we'll do that again. It says Barack Obama assaulted the Department of Defense relentlessly during his reign, opening the floodgates for people morally disqualified to bear arms on behalf of the nation to join the armed forces. The repeal of the don't ask, don't tell policy, firing leaders who wouldn't go along with a progressive agenda, and beginning the process to trans the force, all of this was done to break the military from the last vestiges of moral grounding. It says, a military that doesn't respect the basics of theology, human identity, marriage, and sex can be expected to do literally anything on behalf of paycheck authority. Juice and Bellow became merely a call for military attorneys to find a way to yes. I don't understand that sentence, but okay. Hopefully someone there in the military can tell me what that means. It says, those who anchored the military to truth were forced out, a process re-energized under the regime of Joe Biden. He found a willing accomplice in that endeavor with Lloyd Austin, a man of generally low reputation during his career as a military officer. As years went on, I saw a growing willingness of progressives in the ranks to enthusiastically embrace anti-American doctrines whose aims are the dismantling and deconstruction of the United States. It became not only safe, but encouraged for military commanders to forcefully advocate for extreme left causes in their official capacities. Left-wing ideology was incentivized. I personally witnessed left-wing influencers hired into positions far above their rank and qualifications, specifically because of their activism. In sharp contrast, constitutionalists in the ranks were put on notice that career survival depended on silence in the face of evil. This is not an argument about the First Amendment, but about decency and a worldview worthy of the public's trust for military service, which is a privilege, not a right. In the past few days, we have seen that thousands of military members embrace evil, self-outed through social media posts celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. This level of depravity is far beyond what my worst fears had been of today's mercenary force that has proven so friendly to the extreme left wing of American politics since 2010. Search #revolutionaries in the ranks if you want to get a personal look at the scale of the crisis that the public dare not ignore. His former Secretary of Defense under the Biden administration, Lloyd Austin, went on a 60-day hunt for alleged right-wing extremists in the force and couldn't find them. His fishing expedition looked in the wrong direction, which, of course, given who he was working for, that was never going to happen. So Austin should have been looking for troops who believe that holding to a traditional worldview is a qualification for the death penalty by vigilante. That search would have reaped a harvest, and it's the exact kind of hunt the War Department must now commence. And I don't know what Pete Hegseth is planning on doing. Like, by the time you hear this, we're going to know what he's doing. And he invited all the generals to, like, I think all the top brass of every branch to a meeting. I don't know if invited is the right word. He ordered them to a meeting, if you will. And it's going to happen at the time I'm recording this. It's in a few days. At the time you hear this, it's going to have already happened. So I'm curious to know what that is for and what's going to happen because of that. But I guess by the time you hear this, we'll have known, and we'll find out in a few days from the time I'm recording this. So let me know what you think about this, if this is concerning at all to you. So let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.